Something tells me that Taylor Swift is not used to being booed. I do have to wonder if this is related to the whole Blake Lively situation. I think that it is. And you can tell she's really trying to take a step back now. They're saying that she only showed up at the end of the meeting and that she wasn't really involved in the coercion as much. To be honest, I'm not sure I believe that. I'm just not sure I believe that. I think that she's trying to distance herself now, obviously, because it's literally like career ending kinds of things that are going on with connecting her to Blake Lively. Like, I think Taylor Swift will be fine, but Blake Lively certainly will not be. And like I talked about in one of my recent videos, the composer was fired, the one who was supposed to be the composer for It Ends With Us, and the Deadpool composer was hired. So apparently that had to do with Taylor Swift having had a bad experience working with that composer in the past, and that was demanded in order to use one of her songs in the movie. And all of these things. There was a witness of this who talked about this anonymously on a Reddit post I talked about in my previous video. Of course, these things are a little bit more iffy. They can't be like fully confirmed yet. But something tells me they probably never will be, because I have a feeling that Taylor Swift is going on a silencing spree. In my opinion, Taylor Swift likely has these narcissistic qualities as well. Don't let them fool you. Don't let her fool you into thinking she's innocent. And this is the thing. This is the thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to this whole lawsuit. The reason that I feel like we are catching these narcissistic abusers destroying this literal victim, Justin Baldoni, is because Blake Lively went about it in such a stupid way. Ryan Reynolds, I believe, is really the mastermind here, and I think Blake Lively was really just narcissistic, but she's not the brains here. She's not the brains. And maybe it just has to do with like overestimating their power and thinking that they can get away with this because they have so much power in Hollywood. But I think this is what really bothers me about narcissistic abuse and this whole situation. When it comes to ones that are a little more subtle, ones that are able to cover their tracks more easily, like potentially Taylor Swift, in my opinion. I mean, sure, we don't have proof on that, but it's because we don't have proof on that means that people who are still narcissistic, who can cover their tracks, they can get away with it. And while there are no perfect victims, I think that the more we see coming out against Blake Lively and how Justin Baldoni handled it with such grace, Justin Baldoni is as close to a perfect victim as you could possibly get. And I think it is the contrast, Blake Lively having this aggrandized behavior that has been historically shown in basically every working environment she's ever been in, compared to Justin Baldoni, who has a podcast and where he vulnerably and admits to his faults and tries to exonerate women, and where he's open about his very accepting faith, by the way. I want to talk about that in another video. I thought it was a really fascinating religion when I looked into it. I'm personally, just so you know, I am very much anti-Abrahamic and patriarchal religions. So I know I have a lot of new subscribers now. If that is something that would bother you for me to criticize, you're probably not going to like my channel. But anyways, just looking at his religion, it's so open-minded and it's so just like all about real love. And I really think that this like one of the few religions that I think really produces like such amazing people. So we have him, living this faith and this religion that's all about love and acceptance and viewing everyone else as one. Like we are all connected to this universal oneness, which actually goes along the lines of my personal beliefs. So I might be interested in looking into that religion myself. But my point is that we see this contrast. Like Blake Lively she has that overt kind of narcissism. And Justin Baldoni is, that situation where he has been victimized, he was able to keep his composure and keep his grace. And that is not true of every person who is a victim of narcissistic abuse. I'm definitely going to go into this and more in another video, especially when I start getting into my story. But reactive abuse is a thing. And this is why it can be so confusing when it comes to trying to figure out in a narcissistic dynamic, like who's the abuser and who's the victim. because quite often it can look like the opposite, even when you're just observing their behavior. And so, as much as I feel like this is such a major step forward for identifying narcissism and, basically a public lesson on narcissism, I still think that people don't recognize that it can be a lot more complex than that. And I think that's one of the reasons why the whole Taylor Swift thing, where people are starting to kind of like, maybe she wasn't as involved as we thought she is. I question that. I really, really question that. Because most of the time, narcissists are a lot smarter than Blake has been.